Good morning everyone and welcome back to the two-headed wolf gaming channel Last Epoch and the first druid which I ever created within this game. And this is an interesting character for me because at the time I was trying to prove a theory which I had. A theory which said the following: no matter what mastery you go for within this game, you will always be able to use any of the primary skills that you have unlocked, combine it with at least one of the mastery skills that you will unlock, and thus increasing its power, giving it new effects, and making it viable for the end game. And I'm happy to say that that theory proved correctly. Any of the skills that you unlock as a base class, any skill that you like to use, you will be able to combine with at least one of the mastery skills which you will unlock, thus increasing its effect, giving it new secondary effects, making it more powerful, and making it more endgame viable. It's really awesome. I have to say, of course, right now that there are certain combination of base skills with mastery skills and with certain unique items which are much more powerful than other combinations. But being able to use any base skill with any mastery as a foundation for this game, it means that in the future, as time passes, at any point the developers might return and take a look at certain combinations, offer us maybe certain new unique items, or maybe balance the skills out to make them more powerful, and thus, in the long run, the developers might be able to make all skill combinations viable for the end game and make all of them be super powerful, which is absolutely awesome, and that is why I love Last Epoch even in its current state. I love the combination of skills and the freedom that you have to test things out and see how they work together. Which brings me to this druid. What I wanted to try out with this druid is that I wanted to make a totem build with this mastery. Usually, if you want to go for a totem build, you will most likely want to go for a shaman. If we look at the shaman passive skill tree and we write down totem, we can see here that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 skills, or 9 skills which focus entirely on totems. Besides that, of course, we get the mana reduction there when summoning a totem, and we also get 50% elemental resistance while we control a totem. So overall, the shaman might be the best class for a totem build. However, when we look at the druid, we can see that we have only one skill which focuses on totems, but there are other skills within this tree which focus on minions. And since a totem is also a minion, if you look at the scaling tags there, you can see minion. It also means that I could give my totems power. Not only that, let me show you how the active skills played together in order to make a druid a totem build. And this is what we're going to continue with. However, I am going to change it in certain ways. So, I started with my first specialization, the Thorn Totem. I gave it power, I gave it a chance to do double projectiles, I increased its critical strike chance. Basically, I've tried to summon multiples. I focused on making a totem build, right? And this seemed like the first skill, and the first skill which I should be specializing in, and thus making it my primary. But then, in order to summon even more totems, I went with Tempest Strikes. What is a Tempest Strike? Well, it's a melee attack which cycles through cold, physical, and lightning damage. And when we do that, we also summon a Tempest which corresponds to each of the damage types. So Frigid Tempest for cold, Wind Tempest for physical damage, and Thunder Tempest for lightning damage. However, if you go down this path over here, you can see that you could also get Looming Gale. You now create a Tempest Totem that casts Tempest of the corresponding strike that created the totem. So we would, instead of attacking, because if you look at the modifiers there, it says that it removes the melee attack. So instead of doing melee attacks in order to create those Tempests, we are instead summoning totems, going once again through cold, physical, and lightning damage. So that gave me even more power to cast totems. Then, of course, I got to the Druid specialization, to the Druid mastery, and thus I decided that I could specialize here in Spriggan form, and that there's a really cool effect for this form, and that is this one right here. The Spriggan can summon healing totems. That is an ability that the Spriggan has. However, if you go with spike totems here, healing totems directly cast from these three now also shoot thorns. Thorn totem skill 3, mana cost, cooldown, and totem limit also applies to healing totems. So all of a sudden, instead of just being able to summon some thorn totems like this, or summon some of these thorn totems like this with the Tempest Strike, I was able to go in Spriggan form, and I could put down healing totems, and they also shoot with the power of our thorn totems. So all of a sudden, a totem build became viable even while playing with a druid in a Spriggan form. Not only that, the totems are healing me while also damaging the enemy at the same time, and that is absolutely awesome. Finally, I went with the swipe ability here because it had this ability that when we use swipe and we kill an enemy, we have a chance to summon a claw totem. A claw totem being a melee totem with physical damage. An interesting idea overall. I decided to go with it just because I like the effect, but I want to make some changes today. But first of all, let's see this character at work before anything else. Now, it's not in a very powerful state. However, we will respecialize it in a second, and we're gonna assign a bunch of passive points and active points, and we will pretty much empower it and making it stronger and better for the long run. As you can see, I'm doing pretty good damage. I am staying quite high on health. The point of this build is to go in and out of Spriggan form, put down a few totems, and then I can go in Spriggan form and I can put down even more totems, and you can see that I can pretty much fill up the battlefield with totems. At the end of the day, if I go into melee and I kill certain enemies, I am summoning even more totems, which do melee damage. Whenever I feel like I need some elemental damage, of course, I can put down some of these Tempest Strikes. And if you'd like to see how I got the character which I'm running with at the moment, there's already a few episodes on the channel. I will also put them down in a separate playlist for this character in particular, which will continue from this point onward. As you can see, for the campaign, this build goes pretty well, hits pretty hard. There are of course a lot of extra points which I would need to invest both in the Spriggan form and in the totems in order to make them truly powerful. And I could stay with poison. There's a lot on the skill tree which focuses on poison. Actually, there's a lot more on the skill tree which focuses on poison than there is focusing on cold damage. However, somehow I like the idea of going for the cold damage. Now let's try to take down one of these mages and just see how it would feel. Have a few more enemies around here. Take them out. Let's put down a few more vines. I went out at form because I want the Spriggan, the summoning which I have with me, to heal. Now we can focus on the exiled mage. Let me put down a bunch of mental totems, then I'm going in Spriggan form, we'll put down a few healing totems, and we're gonna focus our damage on him. Definitely not the most powerful build which I ever had up to this point, but it's also weaker from multiple perspectives. On one side, I haven't invested enough points. I am about 10 levels behind. on the passive skill points, and I'm a few levels behind on the active skill points, but more than that, my equipment is pretty bad. So there's a lot of farming that I need to do, but I've also brought a bunch of goods from the stash, and thus we're gonna have a lot of fun very soon by throwing in a bunch of uniques, and probably finding even better equipment from here on out using the faction system, which I've already specialized in. I went once again with the idea of solo self-found, and we shall see how that works going forward. Okay, I think we're good here. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm not going to go further on this map just because I want to return here and put to the test the build after we have worked on it. So I'll see you in the respecialization part, and we shall see what we can do with those skill points. So here we are, and let's see how much more powerful we can become by throwing in a few uniques which work well with the build that we're running with right now, and of course by also focusing and respecializing certain points to go into the direction of cold damage instead of poison. So first of all, let's start with gear. I have Veilroot here, a unique armor which provides us with 74 armor, 47% increased healing effectiveness, +1 to Spriggan form, which is the trend form that I have right here, right, turning into a 3. And then +11 to spell physical damage, 14% increased area with Torn Shield, 78 health, 79 mana, and 66 damage reflected to the attackers. We're losing some armor in the process and a bit of fire resistance, but other than that, we're good. We're gonna take this risk. At the end of the day, we're firing from a distance, so it doesn't matter all that much. And then I have the Tears of the Forest here as an amulet, 25% increased minion damage, 7% increased minion critical strike chance, +1 to Spriggan to summon Spriggan. Summon Spriggan is this other smaller trend here, which also provides healing. +1 to Spriggan form, our trend form. 2 rage gain per second per summoned vine. Rage is the resource that we are using in Spriggan form, or in any form that the druid has, which is used as a resource to stay in the form and also to cast any of the special skills that the Spriggan has. Basically, the more skills you use, the higher the cost, the quicker you get out of this form. Then we're also gaining 5% increased movement speed while transformed, 28% increased armor while transformed, that's also awesome, and another 40 mana, so in the end, that's really cool. I have these boots, which you might have seen before in my videos, Eterra's Path, +53 armor, 13% increased movement speed, an extra 111 health. The minions and us gain 20% increased movement speed and also 23% increased healing effectiveness. Every second that we are moving, we gain a 27% chance to cast Summon Vines, so that is awesome, and +1 to Entangling Roots, which is a skill that I don't have unlocked right now, but we will get it very soon. Either way, pretty good boots, we're gonna throw those on. And then I have a few more pieces of gear. Legacy of the Quiet Forest is one which I will be equipping very soon. A belt which provides us with 5 potion slots, 108 armor, 36% void resistance, 42% poison resistance, and another 32% poison resistance while transformed. 17 rage gained every 3 seconds while in Spriggan form. So we'll be able to stay in that 3 form for a lot longer, or that trend form, I think I'll call it. And finally, we have a few pieces of gear that we're not gonna get into details right now because they're for level 70 and onwards. But if you want to find out more about them, you can pause the video while I'm hovering over them. This one is a helmet which will provide us with a bunch of bees, 8 bees every 10 seconds while we are in the trend form, and the rest of the effects are applied to bees in particular. Then I have this dagger which will give us more power to the totems, +2 to all totems if we have a set, and luckily for us I also have this ring which also gives us more power, right, or that works together with this one in combination to give us that +2 to all totem skills. So overall, a lot of power here that we might get. We might be replacing the gear, or we might change it back, removing certain uniques. Sets are not the most powerful in the world, so maybe I'm not going to use them in the future, but we'll see about that. For the moment, let's look at active skills. And the first big change which I am going to make here for summon Thorn Totems is to go toward the Pillars of Herod, where Thorn Totems now gain a chance to freeze and 100% of their base physical damage is converted to cold damage. The wording here is very important. It says the base physical damage is converted to cold damage. It's not physical damage converted to cold damage. So modifiers like this one, where we get increased minion physical damage, does not apply in this situation. It's just about the base physical damage that the Thorn Totem has and nothing else. And this is proven by the following. Consequently, its damage now scales with your totems increase to cold damage instead of physical damage. And all poison chance is converted to frostbite chance for Thorn Totems. So once again, if we're looking at these skills, this is increased minion poison damage. It didn't say that it's going to increase the cold damage at all or cold damage over time or anything like that. So this skill becomes useless for us. What we want is Blessed Springs here, where we get increased cold damage and healing effectiveness for us and the minions. And there's also River Spirits, where once again we get increased minion cold damage and increased minion freeze rate multiplier. If we didn't, or if we could pick both of these skills for the cold damage and also get the multipliers from the physical damage converted to cold damage, this would have been way too overpowered. At least as far as multiplier goes, I think this would have scaled up like crazy in the endgame. So I'm guessing that that's why the wording is so specific in this situation. And now Thorn Totems will have additional cold resistance. Overall, it's our first big move. I've removed a point here from shredding armor because I don't need it anymore. I don't plan to do melee damage that much or do physical damage. I've also removed this increased critical chance by 50% because of the knowledge that I have now for the wording of critical strike chance, where it's increase, it's not base critical strike chance. So from 5% here, which is the base critical strike chance for everything at any point, I only got 1% extra, and that is not useful in my book. So that's why I removed the point from there. I had to throw in at least 3 points here for the poison chance in order to get this one. But poison chance will apply from now on to frostbite chance, and I am happy with this choice. On Tempest Strike, there's a part of me which says that I would like to keep this just because there's this skill. However, I don't know if I can actually use it. It's called the Druid Call. While transform and you use any melee attack and hit at least one enemy, you have a chance to cast each Tempest of a matching damage type. Basically, if we have cold damage, we would be able to do the Cold Tempest type. This consumes mana equal to a portion of Tempest Strike's mana cost. But the problem is, it says here while transform and you use any melee attack. If I go into Spriggan form, Spirit Thorns is not a melee attack. Release a burst of thorns towards enemies in the target direction. Thorns deal physical damage on hit and multiple thorns can hit the same target. So this is a spell. This is not a melee attack. I am wondering if Summon Vines, where we summon 3 poisonous vines around the target location, and vines are melee minions that inflict poison on hit, and we can have up to 12 vines. I wonder if those can cause the Tempest to appear. And I do not have the answer to this question. I know that the Werebear, for example, has melee attacks, and so does the Sworn Blade. And I'm guessing that it's created in such a way that you can specialize in it for them. However, I'm not sure. What I want to do is, of course, test it out. So we're going to try to invest in this direction for now. We're going to stay with Tempest Strike for the moment. If this does not work, then we won't care about it anymore. We will despecialize from it, and I will throw something else in. Which brings me to Swipe, an ability where I plan to stay in Spriggan form as much as possible, because this will give us the healing totems with the most amount of damage, And thus I think if I can specialize in something else, it might be a bit more valuable than staying in this melee form, even though we could go, let's say, with some cold damage here and other modifiers. Basically, I am thinking that gaining mana would also be really amazing. However, if we want to stay in the Spriggan form for long, this will not matter, and thus I will despecialize from this skill right now, and I am going to throw in Summon Spriggan as a skill, just because we have at least one Spriggan with us at all times, and thus we want to have them around. Now let's take a look at Cold. Cold is in this direction, where they will change from physical to cold damage. Poison, I'm guessing once again, is poison chance from all sources for both skills is converted to frostbite. Great. And then we can get freeze rate multiplier and aura freeze rate multiplier. What do we want to get first? Your Spriggan can now use Summon Vine, melee minions that, yes, we want them to summon vines, so let's bring those to the battlefield as well, and then let's go with cold damage. This is all that we can invest in at the moment. We'll take a look at the rest of the skills later. And finally, this brings me to Spriggan form, where we need to look for cold damage. It's actually very close to us. Ice Branch, Spirit Thorns, which is that ranged attack, Summon Vines, and Thorn Shield base physical damage is converted to cold. Consequently, this damage scales with increased cold damage, but not increased to physical damage. They also have a chance to freeze enemies. Poison chance from all sources for all three skills is converted to frostbite, and effects related to poison now depends on frostbite instead. That is pretty awesome as an effect. So let's invest 2 points in here, and let's go to the Ice Branch. We could also get this Maelstrom chance on Spirit Thorns, so I am thinking that maybe if we despecialize out of Tempest Strike, and that is most probably the case, we can go with Maelstrom and Entangling Roots as our other specialization skills, because Maelstrom is a great attack and provide us with a really nice shield, and it can also buff us with some extra attacks, can provide effects to also our totems here. Maelstrom deals more damage when cast on a totem. So overall, that seems like an interesting idea to empower our totems, to make them even stronger than they were before. But what should I be getting first? I have 2 more points at this moment. You can see that we can change our vines to be ranged vines, but I want to stay in melee just to see if these Tempest Strikes will apply when our vines are doing melee damage. You now have a chance to summon a new vine next to a nearby enemy when a vine dies. That could be very interesting. After summoning a vine, human form is now replaced with Infestation, which converts 2 of the nearest vines into hives and transforms you into Swarm Blade form. Very interesting as an idea. Your vines have a chance to grant you rage on hit. Melee hits have a higher chance to grant rage than spell hits. If you have a great vine node, the rage gain is 200% higher. So we could get rage and thus keep us in Spriggan form even longer if we don't want to stay with the items which we have equipped right now. But I think the most important thing which I want is this Unbound Garden. You can now always summon 3 healing totems, and you can have an additional maximum healing totems, 1 per each. Since we're focused on totems, let's invest 2 points there and make sure that we try out some things on the battlefield. So, spell poison chance, yeah, we might care about that, but we don't care about any of this. Cannot respect because there's other points invested. Increased critical strike chance, I don't care about that anymore. I cared in the past, I thought so at least at the time, but we don't care about it anymore. Let's invest the maximum amount of points over here into cold damage, just because I want to despecialize out of this here, the physical damage. What else do we want? Like, is there anything else that we could remove? Well, on the Primalist side, we want everything here. Spell damage increases the damage of our totem, so that's why we want it. Increase base spell damage and totem spell damage is also really amazing, and the bonus is tripled while using an axe. That's why I have here an axe, and the wand is offering us spell damage for our minions as well. So that's why I have a wand and an axe at the moment. Making our totems immune to poison, this is really good for later on because totems are immobile, and thus if they sit in a pool of poison, they will continuously take a lot of damage, and that is not great. Now I could also remove this. At this moment, this one is offering us 24% increased cold damage, just as it is, because it's doubled with, well, having minions, and I like that. I'll stay with dual wield. Yeah, there's nothing here that we want to remove, and really there's nothing here that we want to remove at this moment either. You have additional elemental penetration while transformed, that's 7%, that's pretty good. And what else do we want? We have 13 more points, and I'm guessing that investing at least 2 more points here would be great. Increase damage while transformed, reduce rage decay. No rage decay while out of combat could be great for us. Actually, let's do that. Let's do 3 points here, 1 there. Get a bit of a multiplier here. If we invest 5 points, up to 5 points, us and the minions have a chance to inflict frostbite on hit. So let's do that. What else do we want here? If we invest 5 points in Totemic Restoration, you have a chance to summon a healing totem when we are hit, and they do damage as well. So they will scale up with the healing totem, and I like that. We have unlocked here aspects of might. Okay, don't care about that. Cold penetration and minion cold penetration we care about. We invest summon 6 points. Our Locust and Summon Crows have increased attack, cast, and movement speed. We don't care about that. Locust Armor Shred with critical avoidance per 5 attunement, that could be great. Increase minion damage and increase minion healing, that could also be great. Increase damage over time while transformed, that could be good for our frostbites. Less damage taken over time in human form, that's not as important. Shapeshifter duration, you gain Shapeshifter buff for a limited duration when you transform, granting you increased armor and damage. Interesting. And that's an increased duration there, some health and mana regen, limit to 1 companion but make it stronger. Now we don't care about that. Let's go further with River of Spirits, and that's our build complete. With all of this in mind, let's now go back to the battlefield. We're going back to the Divine Era, and let's see, where were we? It was over here in the Burning Forest. Let's try it out. As you can see, now I'm summoning vines as I'm walking with the boots automatically. Let's go into Spriggan form and let's see how we do. As you can see, they're doing cold damage now. Frostbite applies a lot more often than Poison did. And I am staying in Spriggan form quite well. I don't need to worry too much. So far so good. Does the Spriggan look? Yes! I like the fact that it changed color to represent cold. It's small details, but I love this sort of small details. For any role-playing game, I want to see gear change in the look of the character. I want big transformation to change the look of the character as well. And as you can see, right now it's a lot more efficient. We don't even need to sit around for long. And if we can get some really good multipliers to cold damage, to minion cold damage, that will be absolutely awesome. Now, if I'm thinking about getting Maelstrom as well to get that aura of cold damage, and if I can farm a bit more to level 50, let's see. Let's just summon Vines. I want to see Tempests. So actually, let me... Do I see any Tempests? No. Tempests would be very easy to see. Like, look at this. So let me go forward and I'll put down a few totems. Look at that. So you can see all of the totem effects. You can see the ice shards and everything else that's happening. So we can draw a very easy conclusion, which says that unfortunately we're not doing melee damage, and thus we're not casting Tempest Strikes. So this is not useful anymore for us. That is okay. It was worth a try. At the end of the day, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can bring some crows to the battlefield and do freezing damage, but I don't see much value in that. I think I prefer Maelstrom, especially since we can get some extra Maelstrom, right? Maelstrom chance on Spirit Thorns. There's also Maelstrom on Thorn Shield, and we also have the ability to throw Maelstroms on totems and thus increasing their damage. Other than that, there's nothing else which would matter. We also have Entangling Roots. So Entangling Roots calls forth a wave of roots that grows outwards in a wide cone in front of you. The wave deals physical damage and roots enemies it hits for 1.5 seconds. Rooted enemies take physical damage over time until they are freed. Added spell damage applies at 100% of the initial hit and 200% per second for damage over time. That is great because we could go towards cold damage. We can have Root Wave has a chance to inflict Frostbite. Poison chance from all sources is converted, okay, for Root Wave. And effects related to poison now depends on Frostbite instead, okay. Freeze rate per level +1. So we can keep them in place for longer. Entangling Roots is now cast from the nearest totem to your cursor. That is absolutely amazing. This is more amazing than Maelstrom. Maelstrom will be our ultimate piece, but since we can automate this, and we can even make vines grow after burst, yeah, we can do a whole lot of things here, and I love it. So with this in mind, let's throw in Entangling Roots, and we're gonna go first of all towards what? Yes, towards automation first and then towards cold damage, because it's useless if we get the cold damage but we cannot summon it except for manually. When we are in Spriggan form we cannot summon Entangling Roots and thus it is useless. With this in mind, let's see, Root Wave immobilizes enemies for longer, okay. Roots Health Leech, great. So it transforms some health to us. Then we have Noxious Grasp, roots damage over time increase, so this is something which we will want going forward, and we're already getting some extra damage for the Frost. Then we get, you now cause Entangling Roots to expand in a circle around you rather than in a cone in front of us, okay? But have a longer cooldown. Now it's cast from totems, and that is absolutely great. When you are stunned, you now cast Entangling Roots. This effect has 20 seconds cooldown, which doesn't affect Entangling Roots cooldown. That is also really, really cool. So further, what are we going to do with the Spriggans that we summon? Your Spriggan summon Vine. We said that we really want that, right? Chance for extra thorns. Your Spriggan's Throne Valley has a chance to fire 2 extra thorns. And always fire 1 extra thorn. Okay, that is extra damage, that's pretty good. Thorn hit damage to frozen enemies increased. That in combination with everything else that we're running with could also be very strong. Ensnaring, okay, those I don't care. Some extra health could be useful for them. I guess for the moment, let's just get with the vines. A lot of vines would just add up to extra damage. That makes me super happy. Right, let's put down the totems and let's keep going forward here. Now do I see Entangling Roots? I don't see Entangling Roots anywhere. If I was to look at Entangling Roots as a skill, how does it look? Okay, it's like this huge wave. And if I have a totem down and I do this, okay, it casts from that totem. So for right now, if I go into this form, I don't see it working. So that is not an automation, which I've just seen there. This might be when we are stunned to be able to cast it. Oh. Okay. So when we are stunned, we could get this. Entangling Roots is now cast from the nearest totem. Okay. Entangling Roots now wraps around your totems and vines for twice the duration as enemies, granting them additional armor and increased attack speed. Entangling Roots now also wraps around your spree guns for twice the duration as enemies, granting them all buffs, okay, as well as additional projectile with their tone volley. But this is not an automation, unfortunately. Entangling Roots now create seeds in the area, and they burst into winter need thorns. Okay, more vines grow after burst. Seeds now burst when an ally draws close to them, which grants you and your allies haste. It's a bit unfortunate. I really thought that I could do this. But maybe we have to go from one form to the other in order to be able to use this. It's either that or I could stay with the stuns. However, how often do I get stunned? Not that often. Let's despecialize. Just because I could re-specialize here with the same amount of points that I had before. So I am going in this direction one more time. And I am going to go with the stuns. Just because I want to see some entangling roots whenever I get stunned. Now I don't see myself getting stunned too much in these areas. 11% chance to cast Maelstrom. I like that. I like the amount of rage that we're running with right now. That's a lot of power right there. Okay, I think I'm going to go with increase cold damage first, before anything else. And I like that idea. Let's go like this. Yeah, I don't see us getting stunned, and because I don't see us getting stunned, I will be re-specializing into the Maelstrom. And I'll be farming around. Later on within the game, when we're starting to run on different maps, on different monoliths, that's where we'll get a much higher chance to get stunned. And I think that maybe having the specialization in entangling roots at that point might be the way to go. I think that that is the case. So with that in mind, let's see. I don't know, do we have a boss in this area or what? Yeah, we have sort of a boss of this area. But look at this. This is turning out to be quite impressive. Once again, it's a nice combination of skills. I don't know how viable will be for the end game, but once again, I am not really interested in the end game at this point all that much. Just because it's pretty much the same road, fight the same bosses, run on the maps, and try to grind for gear. Early late game, I love it. Late game, not really my thing. Maybe it's going to happen at some point in the future when the game improves. With this in mind, this is all the time that we have for today for this build. This is just the preview for what's about to happen. I'll be farming from here on out until I've gained, I don't know, maybe about 15 more levels, and then we'll return, we'll spend a bunch of points, upgrade a bunch of skills together during the episode, and test out the new power level. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have, do consider leaving a like, as it does help me, helps the channel grow. It would be much appreciated. And until tomorrow, I wish you all to have a wonderful day.